Oh, it started.
Go
I'm
on.
sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
Hey,
You're
hello
live.
everybody. Um, my name is Priya Sarathy, and I am a VP in Data Strategy and Execution at Equifax Digital Solutions. I'm so happy to join you today to talk a little bit about the work that me and my team are doing in data strategy. And so the topic for today being data strategy amplifies AI and ML strategy. You already heard from a couple of the keynote speakers, so I will reiterate some of the words that Bill and Kendall mentioned about don't just move data, connect it through the semantics layer. Very, very critical to a data strategy approach. Also heard from Bill about liberating the economies of the data through data democratization. So hopefully what I will be talking about will add a little more dimension to those statements that they made because I think data strategy is very much in for staying for some time. So, without ado, let's start looking at what we're going to go through. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that I do so that it provides you the context to the use cases that I have. And then the examples that I talk about through what I am doing, my team is doing, and what motivates this data strategy and what does it cover from my world of things. I hope that you enjoyed that. So let's start off by talking about what I do and where Equifax Digital Solution resides. Uh, I work with identity and fraud, and digital solutions is about presenting solutions around it. So there is a lot of data. Data is key and central to the success of how we deliver products to our customers. Uh, we support customers to identify and assess that people and the entities that visit their sites, the digital or the physical assets, think about e-commerce platforms, think about your loan officer's location on premise if you go there nowadays. But all this is associated with identity, your identity that as it exists, and whether we can prove that you really are the person you say you are. Now, when there is fraud, there is no label, pre-identified label that identifies a fraud identity. So, so what we have to do is try to assess the risk and the opportunities against a profile to help in preventing fraud or likely fraudsters. And a solution allows our customers to use our recommendation to make more informed decisions to grow revenue. So let's move on to the use cases. Given what I've told you, identity assessment and fraud pattern and anomaly detection obviously are the two key use cases that our whole business cycle revolves around. How do we approach these solutions? Uh, the the point about identity and especially digital identity solutions is that we have to deal with a lot and lot of data. The data that is, I would say, akin to those haystacks. A lot of them, and we are searching for what would you say is needle or multiple needles that are related, associated with the identity of the which we are going to assess. Just think about it. Within just two data haystacks that we may consider, there are about 34 billion transactions, payment inquiries that are going through our systems from the front door, from the portals. So identity itself is multidimensional. Fraud is multidimensional, and they are both evolving. What do I mean by that? It is that when you talk about identities, we cannot talk about a single identity associated with a person. There could be multiple personas that you have created in your lifetime, from childhood to college, as a young professional, to a family household manager, or to your later on as a senior citizen. Every time you are building your identity with many different relationships. So most customers come to us with something like the stick figure to the left, very little information. Perhaps a name and address, perhaps a phone number and a zip code, perhaps just the information about your last four digits of your birth year. And what we have to do is assess these identities with confidence, going through those haystacks, the data haystacks, in a way that we can identify the persona that belongs appropriately to that identity, that information that we receive. Now, the question is, can we provide additional insights and scores and decisioning tools that help our customers make sure that that persona that we have provided is not really a fraudster? Okay, so how do we typically go about doing this? Let me start off by talking about identity versus entities. So, when you talk about digital identity, there are many components to it in the form of entity information, the device that you use, the emails that you use, and you have plenty of them, typically average of 2 to 3 per person, an average person. Your location, the phone numbers that you use, wireless, cell, prepaid, it's a variety of devices. Along with the digital entity pieces, we also need to associate your physical identity, the address where you live in, the national ID, the employee ID. So there are many aspects of this. And reflecting back on the semantic layer discussions we had earlier, the ability to connect the digital and the physical identity is very critical for the success of creating this 360 view of a consumer, sorry. So we do it using real-time linking through AI, graph analysis, and elements of advanced analytics, ML models as well. So the question is, we have to bring this information together. So what do we do it with? Data. Data is in the foundational piece that allows us to build upon it layer by layer and deliver value to our business. The fact that we have data is not just the stop, the final end of the journey. These data assets are differentiated. So when you look on the right hand side, I have two columns of types of data that we have: chargeback, disputes, fraud, borrowing behavior, financial behavior, demographic. All these tend to be really large, high volume data. Some of them are very high velocity. As we move more and more to digital online platforms as the preferred mode of interaction and communication, the volume that is associated within these data sources also starts expanding and exploding. So that is what I mean by differentiated data assets from a data scientist viewpoint. If I put on my data strategy hat, I am thinking in a different way. And that different way is I'm thinking about what kind of data do I have? What are the characteristics of the data? On the left, you see, I'm thinking about, is this data an interaction data? Am I seeing a person send their inquiry and they are interacting with my system? In our case, the Equifax system. They're looking to get a approval for a loan, a new credit card application coming in. The inquiry comes in, it hits our system, we respond with the appropriate request that was made. That interaction is high volume, high velocity. Okay, let's hold that thought for a second. The second piece of information or type of data that we're looking at is internal data versus external data. Internal is something we have confidence about, we know more about it, we know exactly what it looks like. But when we take some external data from vendors or from other parties, we are not really tuned in to complete details of how the data was created, but we do know what the information that is being passed down and how we can use it. As a part of data strategy, it becomes very important to understand that depth of information so we can manage the appropriate use of it. Are we sure we are managing it so that our data scientists are not violating any contractual obligations? So, things like that. And a third piece that I would like to explain a little bit is about data exchanges. You probably know that with Equifax, different financial institutions contribute their information to us so that we maintain an exchange that becomes a pool of information and resource for them to leverage. Now, what does this do? It allows us to see a cross domain, cross industry, cross financial institutions view of people and their financial behaviors. That helps us in digital solutions to find, flag, assess emerging fraud patterns that may start with one financial institution but soon could permeate and move over to other financial institutions as well. Fraud schemes such as synthetic ID, loan stacking, credit washing, all these are very familiar to forms of fraud schemes that we are all being exposed to. This is an advantage. So we need to be very careful how we manage these exchanges, how we maintain integrity and the use of it. For all this, the importance of data strategy is cannot be iterated just once or twice. So all this assessment and data has to be used efficiently and effectively. What this represents is basically the problem of big data. I think Kendall mentioned it. No, I think Bill mentioned about GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Big data comes with its challenges and comes with its advantages. The high volume, the variety, velocity, and veracity of data, as you know, is something that our machine learning and data scientists crave. They want that volume of data so they can run their ML processor, build the algorithms, refine, retrain, and get us the best and accurate predictive information we can get out of the data. But along with this is the need to manage the data in a very business oriented manner. What do I mean by that? How businesses use the data can vary by industry. For us, being in financial services, we have to be very cognizant of the way these features become used, the data that is converted into features get used. So, what did we do to manage and mitigate the risk of big data? Our data strategy team, which by the way has a lot solution architects, data engineers, and data scientists, are able to look at the problem of data in the context of the business domain, in the context of the use cases, and make sure that we are building a data strategy that is consistent, that is friendly, user friendly, flexible, reusable by not just one of these use cases, but across the many use cases that we may have as a part of digital solution. So the first thing that we did to respond to big data challenges was our team started looking at how we could organize the multiple data haystacks that we were given. So I'm using the word haystack in a very loose, more of a in jest, but these data are high volume data, high or with a variety of different pieces. And for identity and the 360 consumer view to happen, to be a realization, we needed to understand the data and how to blend and bring those data views together to build these custom data views to make sure that the data in its authenticity is not distorted, but the information that is extracted is effective and can be monetized in the products that we are building. So our data engineers have the domain expertise to make that connection happen. We build many pipelines, such as a velocity pipeline, which is basically looking at streaming real-time information. And as a part of the strategy, we identified those trigger events that carry information, that carry risk signals about a consumer's behavior that could be useful later on. So as data is streaming, we collect it and store it so that downstream the product or our data scientists are able to effectively leverage that information. This pre-computing also has an impact on SLAs, but overall, because we have created a very standardized layer of information, what we have also brought into the picture using data strategy is a transparency and an increase in the trust in the data, the trust that the consumer can take of us because we are making sure there is governance and monitoring on the quality of the data. Now, I'm going to skip over this, but knowing we are in financial services, and I know many speakers before have talked about it, Explainability and actionable data insights are very important to all customers and to our products as well. So, having this data centric framework, I think Bill quoted Andrew Young, is very important. And that is why a data strategy, a well thought of data strategy, is important to make sure that we are creating and building actionable AI ML outcomes. So let me just take a quick stab at explaining the bigger picture of how our data strategy enters into the product delivery process for digital solutions. So this is a very stylized version of our product pipeline. Data gets ingested, data-based features are getting engineered based on the recommendations and the needs of the AI ML models that we have developed. The information from the features are stored in a feature store. The model deployment process takes advantage of the features pre-computed in the feature store, also information from the data source itself to develop scores and insights that help the product layer deliver the required response to our customers. What does the AI ML strategy execution look like? Very, very similar to what we all know and we are aware of. So, this is offline model training, model improvement, retraining that is constantly happening. Now, where data strategy enters is how we manage the data that is feeding both these processes. The streaming raw data is ingested. Our team works with identifying the schemas, the semantic layers that make sure that the information that is ingested is appropriate and is customized to the needs of our use cases. We need to link data. We need to link the digital identity and the physical identity. That means we need to understand the data and create the right types of views. Based on the views that we have created, our feature engineering team then works on building domain-based features that that make the final enablement and deliver the product easier. Because remember, we are cycling through a lot of information, billions and billions of data, to do it in real time with very high SLAs is not easy. So some of the complex computation needed for fraud pattern and anomaly detection can be picked up ahead of time and kept in the feature store. And then we are ready when an inquiry comes in to leverage that information very quickly and be more responsive to our customers' needs. We do have governance as part of data strategy and monitoring because all these provide a feedback loop into maintaining the quality and the trust in our data. Now, the value of the data strategy, of course, is amplifying the value across the different systems. The information from the feature store is accessible. It kind of makes it more of a self service to any product that is using our data. It is standardized because of the pipelines and the way we have built the features. And so the trust piece of the data becomes. So this is how we are able to democratize not just the data, but also the features. The other aspect of the feature store is now our data scientists in the AI ML algorithms can use these feature stores and trigger start the process and spend more time building algorithms that are more effective rather than spending time spinning wheels on just trying to blend the data. So, to sum up, the fraud digital solution is data rich. It requires a data strategy to organize our diverse data effectively. When we build the data strategy for quality of the data that gets ingested and the feature pipelines, this allows us to liberate a greater self-service for the AI ML processors, amplifying the speed with which they can rapidly innovate and deliver new products into our product cycles. So overall, the data-centric strategy helps to build data trust and mitigate risk. So that's what I have for you today. I hope it reiterates and adds more weight to all the discussions you've heard so far. Thank you. Okay. Um, is there any question here? I guess not. Okay. Thank you, everybody.